Hello, I'm Nils from the Captury, and today I'd like to introduce our software Captury Studio. With Captury Studio, you can do markerless motion capture in a post-processing workflow. That means you go out and capture your videos at action that you're interested in, then you go home, process these videos, and get the data. This involves several steps. In the first step, you calibrate the system. That means you have to tell the software where each camera is and in which direction it's pointing. And in the second step, you capture the motion that you're actually interested in. And I walk you through all the steps in this tutorial. First step is to calibrate the lens of these cameras. And we take this calibration board and we just swipe it across the field of view of the camera, a bit further away, a bit closer. And make sure to also hold it at an angle, not just parallel to the camera, because otherwise it's not possible to get the field of view, like the focal length of the camera. And you do that for all cameras, and you only do that once, and that's it. So this is what Captury Studio looks like when you fire it up for the first time. So the first thing we need to do is we need to create a new shot from the videos that we just recorded. So this up here is kind of your project directory. This is where you will put all the videos that belong to one project, essentially. So the first thing we want to do is like a lens calibration. So we'll call it lens. Then we need to add some files. So we can either type in a pattern, like when you have a complex way that you store your videos in some JPEG sequence or something, then you can actually type in the pattern here. But we're just going to add some files, so that's very easy. So I just browse to the directory where my files are, and they're called video 1 through 7. And I just click open. It automatically figures out that it's 50 FPS. And now down here I have the choice of either importing them into the shot directory, like we actually copy the videos, or you can import them, like convert them to motion JPEG, which like has very fast seeking capabilities, or we just create a symbolic link, which is only available on Linux, but then it doesn't have to copy the files. The disadvantage is that if those videos get deleted or moved, then it's not going to work anymore. Down here you're able to select a calibration, but we don't have a calibration yet, so we'll just leave it empty. And you can also scale the calibration in case you've actually opened a calibration from some other project that actually has a different scale. So we work in millimeters. Yeah, I just click OK. And now we have the cameras over here. And I can seek through them. And over here you can see that I'm just walking up to the camera with my calibration board, and I just swipe it across the view. So I'll just go to calibrate up here, and on the right, in the panel on the right, I'll select lens, and then I'll seek to like where the beginning of that board, like camera calibration is, and I click calibrate or detect boards. And it's very quick. And once it's done, I click stop and calibrate lens. And this takes a couple of seconds, and now I have my lens calibration. Normally you'd have to do that for all cameras, but in this tutorial I'll just do it for one camera and then load a calibration that I've done before. So lens calibration you only have to do once normally, unless you actually mess around with the lens. So with fixed focal lenses you really don't want to touch them again once you've done them once. So I'll just save it. And then create a new shot with the volume calibration. So same thing again. I need to kind of tell it what to call it and load the videos. I want links, and this time I'm going to load the calibration from one that I've done before. Yeah, so I'm just going to load this camera calibration. And yep, that's it. Here I walk around with the board kind of all over the place in the volume. And in the end I put it on the ground to set the floor. Same thing as with the lens, I just go to the beginning and hit Capture Calibration Board in the Volume tab this time. And now it's going to start detecting the board. And I just wait until it's done, or the detections start turning green in all cameras. You'll notice that I'm holding the board such that I'm not covering any of the squares with my hands or fingers. So I prefer this like a thumb on top of the board. But you can also kind of hold it at the edges of the board. Yeah, this is pretty much it. So this wasn't quite enough data, I would say, like it's still red in some views. So I'm just going to switch go back to the beginning, the same, not the first frame, but like a few frames later. Like so now I'm at frame 10. And capture again, because then it's going to detect additional boards in between the original detections. And once it's finished, you can see the reconstruction error over here. Less than 5 is okay, and less than 10, yeah, you can probably work with it, but it's not great. Now we have the relative positions of the cameras. So you can see, like if I go into this camera, you can see that there's a camera up here and over there in the corner. But if I go into the 3D view, you'll notice that half or almost all the cameras are below the ground. And that's because we haven't told the system yet where the floor is. And for that, I'll just go to the end where I put the board on the ground and just clear this data somewhere here and say set floor. So now I'm actually tweaking the brightness a bit of the cameras because sometimes it has problems detecting it, especially if there's overhead lighting. Then there may be a glare on the board. So it's a good idea to kind of go up and down with the brightness a bit, because eventually it's going to detect it. And now you can see that like these gray lines show the connection of the camera to the ground, and also the coordinate system here is exactly on the green square with a green line pointing up, red pointing along the x-axis, and blue along the z-axis. So this is it. This is our calibration. The next step is the actual action. So I'll just add the files again, the video files. And this time I'm also going to load the calibration from the volume calibration that we just did. And here we go. The action I did was I just stand in the center for a moment. This is for initializing the skeleton, and then I'm moving around a bit, like trying to elaborate all my joints so that the algorithm is able to estimate the size of my bones a bit more accurately, and then I'm doing a bit of jumping around. Yeah, so I'm seeking to a frame that I like, kind of with the arms apart, and I'm dragging on this new skeleton onto myself, and then I start moving, yeah, to give the algorithm a bit more information about the size of my body. So down here in the timeline, the green color shows you where data has been tracked, and also the color indicates like how well it thinks it's been tracking, and that color varies from green to red. So right now it's quite happy. Alright, it's finished. So now we can go back to the beginning and play it back. And we can also switch to a different visualization. I'm pressing S here to toggle through some different visualizations. And this is like a mesh representation of the tracking. Yeah, so this is essentially it for tracking. Down here in the shot management panel, you can also switch to the other shots we did, or the other projects. So this was the lens calibration and the volume calibration. And yeah, go back to the action. So here in the burger menu that down at the bottom, there's a settings, and that opens a dialog for setting all the configuring the exports. And yeah, you can select all kinds of things, like what the naming convention of the skeleton should be, which direction is up, and all that stuff. Then you can select that you want to export FBX or some other formats. C3D is pretty famous in biomechanics, not so much in animation. And yeah, within the FBX you can also select whether you want to export cameras, the motion, the mesh. Proxies, that's like this Michelin man representation, and you can also export as ASCII FBX. And then you essentially just click OK. So if you change anything, then you can always go and re-export the shot that you already had. That's also here. So this is going to just go in and re-export the data with the new settings that you just selected. So all of these shots are actually just directories, and the directory contains video files and the camera calibration file, and also down here there's the FBX. And I think that's pretty much it. Alright, this wraps up this tutorial on Captury Studio. With the workflow I presented, you'll be able to get your 3D characters to life in no time. If your project requires real-time tracking, check out our other product, Captury Live. Subscribe, like, leave comments below if you have any. Stay tuned and bye-bye.